Many years ago, when I first started teaching, so one of the many things that I'm not good at is spelling. Truth is, neither English or Lashon Kodesh. So when I would give out sheets, sometimes parents would complain. Usually a parent would complain. I don't know. Must be. Like I would not the type to call up and say, you spelled something wrong on that sheet. So the principal came into me and said, it doesn't look right. So I tried to get the spelling right, and I kept looking it up. Yes, believe it or not, this is before computer days and no automatic check spell. Anyway, many of the words I use don't have real spellings anyway, because they're not real words. But then I came upon a very good idea. All I did was I added a comment at the bottom of each sheet as a standard, put it on the template. And it said like this: please do your homework, get extra amount of points, we'll be reviewing it, there'll be a contest. And as a bonus, you get an extra 2 points for every spelling mistake that you find. So you understand when somebody would come to me and say, spelling mistake, you found it, I'm proud of you. Well, that kind of turned the tables a little bit already, and problem was if I accidentally spelled everything right. But in life, very often, the problem is the solution. Next Wednesday night, when we're reading the Megillah, the word Megillah means to reveal. It reveals to us that a lot of the obstacles in life, a lot of the things that we feel is the roadblocks in our life that don't let us move on, that within itself is the solution. So the Yom Tif is called Purim. Why is it called Purim? Al Shem HaPur. And may I ask my dear friends, who knows what is a pur? Anyone? I did this morning someplace. Someone said a cow, right? So it's not a cow. Oh, an ox. No. That's a par, right? What is a pur? Anyone? A lot, right? Pur is the goyrel. So why is it called Purim? How many lots were there? All right, so Haman did 2 lots. We'll soon explain. He threw 2 goyrels. Now, so we know that Haman did the goyrel to try to figure out which day he should kill the Jews. Is that really the pivotal point of the Megillah? I mean, normally when you give a title to something, so either it's a nice catchy title that draws you in, but a real accurate title should depict to some degree the element or the nature of what the main part of the thing is. So is this really, when you read the whole Purim story, from beginning to end, is this really what it's all about? The lots? The goyrel? They say a story that the Rambam, who was always dodging the bullet in terms of people that hated him and set up conspiracies with him, and they were always determined to finish him off. And at one point they made some kind of a bilbil against him, and they trumped up some charges. And they decided as follows. The king knew the Rambam was innocent, so he wanted to work his way out of it. So they said they're going to draw up 2 pieces of paper, and one they're going to write life, and on the other they're going to write death. And the Rambam himself will pull out one of the 2 papers. If it says life, he lives, that's a sign that he's innocent, and if he pulls out the one that says death, he will be executed. The Rambam went, and he took out the paper, quickly put it into his mouth, and swallowed it. They said, what'd you do? He says, now we don't know what it was. He says, look at the other one, you'll know what this one was. Now the Rambam knew they wrote death on both of them. So by now, by swallowing the first one and by looking at the other one, he said, well, that must have been life, right? Wouldn't it be nice if we had an option of working with a goyrel every time we had to make a decision in life? We're not going to get into the goyrel hagra now, but wouldn't it be nice, should I take the job, should I not take the job? Wouldn't it be nice if there was a Sefer Shulchan Aruch, a Siman Shulchan Aruch, Hilchos Goyrolos, and you took 2 pieces of paper, and one you wrote yes, and the other you wrote no, and if you really didn't want the job, you could write no on both of them, and tell your wife you did the goyrel. But whatever it is, wouldn't life be easier if we can make decisions based on a goyrel? Why do we have to rack our brains and consult and ask advice and try to look deep into our conscience and to think what the right thing is? Wouldn't it be nice if somehow there's a kapitel Tillim to say, and presto, a voice would ring out on high that's going to tell us, do the shidduch, don't do the shidduch, take the job, don't take the job, buy the house, don't buy the house, apologize, don't apologize, whatever your situation is in life. I heard a story, someone told me that this Yid Nebuch used to be a tremendous gevir, he was very rich, lost all of his money, and he's wandering from place to place, collecting, and it got to a certain point, he arrives, it's freezing outside, he thinks he's going to pass out on the snow, he bangs on the door, the man opens up, he says, what should I do? I have no place for you, and the truth is, I can't trust you, I don't know who you are, I had a robbery, he says, you're going to let me die here in the snow? He says, you know what I could do for you? You can go into the shtal, you can go into the barn. He says, you know, what you do, it's considerably, it's warm, it's right next to the house, I'll pick up the fire a little bit, I'll give you some blankets, you'll survive. What he did not tell him was that there was someone else sleeping in the barn already on the shelf on top. So he comes there, he collapses on the floor, he covers himself with the hay, some of the blankets, he's not very happy about the cows and the horses walking around, but they're basically sleeping. And he wakes up in the morning and he looks around and he sees where he is, Rabbi Shalom. This is where I went, from a nice plush office to a barn, whatever. And he's crying, and he says, Rabbi Shalom, I'll take the gzeira, but tell me how long more? So this guy's like, wants to sleep on top. This guy's screaming, how long more? So finally it's the middle of the night, and there's like so he just calls out from on top, and he's like sleeping up in the rafters, and he goes, 1 more year. He's like, what? I heard a basko. I heard a heavenly voice. 1 more year. At least now I know there's a stop sign. And he's so relaxed. He feels so enlightened. And finally he says, he yells up, but what's going to be after the year? And the guy yells down. He says, after the year, you'll get used to it already. Okay? Don't worry about it. Imagine we had a basko. Someone told me the story that when he was running away from the Nazis, and the whole story with Shanghai, I don't want to get into it, but there was one bacher, they said he knew Chachmas Hayad. He knew how to read your palm. I mean, he really knew how to read your palm. And once he read his own palm, and he was devastated. He said, I'm not going to make it. And the end was, Hitaka didn't make it. Somehow they took him off, they didn't qualify his papers, and he was lost in Siberia, and he died in a slave labor camp. But people said afterwards, it was not good to know Chachmas Hayad, because he could have had another 2 months of happy life. Right? He had to know 2 months before. There's a medrash that says that a Kadosh Baruch Hu's Avelis, Kadosh Baruch Hu's mourning period is 14 days. 7 days before something happens, 7 days after it happens. Sometimes ignorance is bliss. But Lamaisa, wouldn't it be nice if we had a baskol that came and told us, listen, this is what happened to you, and this is why it has to happen, and this is what you should do now? It doesn't necessarily work that way. Many very often told you the story about the guy that went to India. We'll chaz it over quickly. This is not a real story, I think, I hope. But he heard about some guru with a crystal ball, and he went out there, not talking about the ones on the avenue for $5. That's like, you ever wonder why they don't just pick the winning lottery ticket? They don't have to stand in front of put up a sign, $5 to read palms. Right? The guy that came to the Rebbe and said, Rebbe, you tell me the winning number for pick 4, pick 5, I promise I'll give you half. And the Rebbe says, my dear Talmud, what? He says, if I knew, why would I give you half? I just pick it myself, he says. Alright, so he goes and to India to this guru, and he goes to this crystal ball guy, and the guy, the new kind of crystal balls, and seance, there's all kind of ketairas there, makes you a little high, in good mood. But the new crystal balls, he has the ones from the 1200, just added a part where you can insert your credit card right into it, swipe it. And he says, I have ships at sea, and I don't know what's going to be with my ships at sea. I'm worried from morning to night. So he looks, the smoke clears. He says, your ship is sailing at sea. It's gewaldig. Oh, beautiful. Shoo, it's worth $1 million. However, I notice there are some Somali pirates following your ship. Looks like they're going after it right now. And your son is on that ship. And let me tell you something. Oh boy, he's going to go through some torture. He would be much better off drowning. And all of a sudden he starts screaming, Rabbi Shalom, my poor son, torture, better he drown. He's not drowning. The ship is, there's no storm, there's no nothing. He throws himself to the floor, he starts crying, he says, God, you can always come up with storms. Thinking, this story doesn't have a storm, I need a storm, I need a storm. He says, tell him, all of a sudden he says, look at the crystal ball. He says, what? Credit card time's up. Yeah. He goes, no. Says the new ones go with unimeters. You just put them in and you get like 2 hours in the shot. You have to put the sticker on the crystal ball or something. I don't know exactly how it works. But he says, look, there's a storm. Shoo, there's a storm. Gewaldig, there's a storm. He says, yeah. He says, now the pirates are gone. And it looks like you're, what? Pirates are gone and my son's going to drown. No, God, no, I don't want him to drown. No. And he falls on the floor and he's crying. And he takes out a tillum. He's like, look, storm is gone. Shoo. And I see the ship is coming to a nice landing on a little island over there. Gewaldig. Oh, I know those people on the island. Cannibals. Oh, no. What's going to happen to my son? Oh, you know what's going to happen to him. The child is just going to eat him with ketchup or with mayonnaise or with mustard. But he's definitely going to be supper tonight. He says, oh, no, Hashem, a storm. I'd rather he drown than eaten up. He goes, there's a storm. It's gewaldig. There's a storm, yeah. He says, but wait, look now. Finally he says, you know what? He takes the thing, crashes it on the ground. What'd you do to my crystal ball? He says, I don't want to know. Yes, storm or no storm. Like, I can't tell. You know what the right thing is. I'm just off on my own, right? He learned Tamim Tia in Hashem Alekacha. There's a big tough by Tamim Tia. You gotta, get into it. Now, so we would think life would be nice with a crystal ball, but not necessarily. We would not necessarily be better off. It is our lack of knowledge and it's our suffix. And it's the struggle of life that we have to live with, not really knowing how, A, I'm going to recover from things in the past, or B, how I'm going to deal with the future, that really creates the meaningful relationship, and ironically is a source of bracha. Because things don't work out perfectly. Not in relationships, and not in the way that we can understand it. When they say there's an old couple, there's an old couple coming into a restaurant, and they're sitting down, and one of them goes over, and he orders one burger, one fry, one soft drink, puts it down. And they see that the old man gets up, I don't know, maybe they're in the 90s, and he cuts the burger exactly in half. And they count out the French fries, and he gives half to his wife. And he goes for another cup, and they measure, it should be exact. And the guy feels so bad. He walks over and says, I'll buy you another portion. When we got married, we made up. We split everything 50-50. No portions. Okay? Really? No. All our life we're doing this, who knows how many years? And he's sitting down, he's watching the man is eating away, and the woman is just sitting there. And he goes over and he says, what's your problem? She says, well, we only have one pair of dentures and he's using it now. Share it 50-50, we're waiting. Right? It doesn't work that way. Life is not a 50-50. If you're waiting, if you hold a scorecard in a relationship, it's my turn, it's your turn, you got this, I get that. It does not work that way. The Chafetz Chaim brings, one of the reasons the first base of Mikdash was destroyed was She'emidu Devrayim al Din Torah. You hear? The first Beis HaMikdash was destroyed because they insisted everything should be al din Torah. That's why the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. So the Chafetz Chaim says they weren't mevater. No, I demand. I'm not going to give it 1 cent, not 1 penny. I don't care what your situation is. Look, Shulchan Aruch says I'm right. So very good. But Min HaShamayim, they're not mevater in the course of your din. They look over your scorecard and your relationship with God, and they say, wait a second, we got to punish you. And the Malach says, no, for that you're going to punish him. If he's not mevater, if he isn't willing to give in, we're not willing to give in. The way you handle your relationships down here is the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu handles your relationships. But I want to a different part. What does it mean? Shemidu devrayim al din Torah. They had a need to understand everything. They insisted. And remember, this was the first Beis HaMikdash, so it wasn't so hard. There was Nevuah, there were Nisim, there were miracles, there was a Urim V'Tumim. But they wanted a life of Hamidu devrayim al din Torah. Whatever happens, a tragedy, blessing, bracha, no, Neshamayim, I want a printout. This is why it's happening. And they were able to access it because they had the first Beis HaMikdash. But that was their undoing. Because the primary schar that we have, what makes us special to the Rabbeinu Shalom is when we say, I don't know how I'm going to survive this. And I don't know why. Rabbeinu Shalom, my life is in your hands. I'm doing it. If I ask you, off the cuff, tell me 3 loisases. Tell me 3 things I'm not allowed to do. So what's the person going to say? What am I not allowed to do? Right? You ask 3 essays. Eating hamantashen, 3 loisases. I know shatnez, eating treif, ribis, taking interest. Okay. Do you know that according to the smag, there is a loisase not to think you're a tzaddik? Kiloi b'tzidkascha heviyan. Hear that? If anyone sitting here that does not think that they're a tzaddik, right now you are fulfilling a loisase. Says the Yismach Moshe, well, the rule is that you only fulfill the lois when you have the opportunity to do the Aveira and you don't do it. The Derech B'Kidecha says, for example, he says he thinks everyone should find a Gid Hanasha and hold it up and say, I'm not eating it because it's a Gid Hanasha. He said you can't do it with something you have a taiva for because you can't let yourself into a test. But if it's something you don't have a natural taiva for, so find a piece of how are we ever Mekayim the lab of not eating Gid Hanasha? Rav Belsky, Zolzayin Gesund Nishtak, Shav Refuah Shalema, Chaim Yisrael, Mechan Netzirel. He used to take, when I was he still does it. And Bez Hashem Yisrael, hopefully he'll go back to it. He teaches the treifish here. He teaches the treifish here. He takes a cow, like a ben pakua, which is a baby that wasn't born, and he cuts it up, piece by piece, and he goes through all of the treifos so he takes out the Gid Hanasha. And I remember when I was a bacher, I was learning the Derech B'Kudech, and then I asked if I can have it, so he gave me the Gid Hanasha, and I kept it in my pocket for a while. My mother got a little worried when she saw it once at night. And I would meet someone for a shtick. I'd say, can I be mechabed you with a mitzvah? He says, yeah? Not eating Gid Hanasha. Stay with me. All right. So, here is a loisa say, according to the smag, don't be a tzaddik. So when does this come to me that I'm not a tzaddik? Like, when do we have the opportunity? Someone tells me to go sit over on, I'm not a tzaddik. I'm a loisa. So you got to really believe it. You can't just... So the Yismach Moshe says in Parshas Kisisa, Davar Pella. He says a person goes through a situation and it's really tough. And finally you say to yourself, why me? God, why me? There's so many wicked Rishonim in this world. What are you doing it to me for? I'm a tzaddik. Whoop. You know what? I don't know if I'm a tzaddik or not. I have to go through what I have to go through. He says, you do that, then you are Makayim at this moment, this lav, of not believing you're a tzaddik, loy b'tzid kascha, with the greatest hiddur mitzvah in the world that's shaykh. You could spend $80 a pound on Tana Risha and matzahs. You can spend $5,000 on an esrig for hiddur mitzvah. You know something? You can clean your house for Pesach 10 trillion times. Hiddur mitzvah. But those are mitzvahs you perform with your money, with your emotion, with your guf. But when a person's going through a difficult time, and he doesn't ask the question, or at least we're human beings, but he bounces back from the question. Why me? I'm a tzaddik. Why not him? I'm not mixing into your business. This is my lot. I'm going weiter with it. Then you were just Makayim hiddur mitzvah with your inner emotion, which is 1,000,000 times more chashiv to HaKadosh Baruch Hu than a hiddur mitzvah that you're Makayim with your money. That's easy. Or even that you're Makayim with your body. So now, Himidu Devrayim al Din Torah. In the first place in Mikdash. They wanted to know everything why. And they were told why. They were able to, they had a Urim V'Tumim, they had a Beis Hamikdash with miracles. But the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed because they had no schusim. They had no schusim. Now, I heard this story from someone. This person is a very, very chashuv yid. And you heard it b'shem the Zayda. The Zayda's name is Chaim Yankov. Okay? And the Zayda has a son, very, very chashuv yid. And this son has a son. And the Einakol Loyaleinu V'Loyalechem became very ill. And at one point, he lost his vision. As much as the doctors tried to do, it didn't seem that things were going to work out. Somebody told me the story. And for whatever reason, they came in and the grandfather was there and the doctors told him that this is the matzah with the son, anything could happen. Shuas Hashem keherafayim, but as of now, there's really nothing much for us to do. There's nothing we can do. And his grandfather said, you have to tell me? So what should we do? You were the family member. You were here. So he said it was the most horrible moment in his life. Worse than going over to the grandchild, saying to the grandchild, this is the situation. How could he tell that to his son about his son? It says that the pain of Yitzchak was much greater than the pain of Yaakov. Because he saw Yaakov's pain. He didn't know what to do. And he was overwhelmed like, how? How could the Rabbi Shem do this to me? And I don't know if he either did say it, didn't say it, but at this point he was driving back to New York. He was in a certain hospital, wherever he was. He got onto the highway, went in the wrong direction. And it was one of those highways where 10 miles till the next exit, which meant 20 miles. When he got to the 10 miles, he realized he doesn't have gas. He's looking for a gas station. I'm like, what else? And he pulls into this overnight gas station in a little hick town someplace. And he's filling up with gas. And he hears this voice that says, Chaim Yanko, Yidin Daf and Laden. Yeah, you're a Jew, you gotta believe sometimes your suffering is for a purpose. What? Where? What? How? From what? This hick town, Sheva Hick, there's no mikveh, there's no shul, there's no nothing, there's no yid. Where? This is like either this is I'm a nevuah, or either I'm totally cracking up, or like he's looking around, and the guy, Chaim Yanko, Yidin Daf and Laden, Yidin have to suffer. And he turns around, this guy's laughing his head off. There's this kid pumping gas. And he didn't look very Jewish, but he told him he grew up in a Jewish house, whatever his story was. He said, I was just kibitzing you. He said, I saw a guy with a beard. So he wasn't sure. Where do I know you from? He says, I don't know you. He says, well, I remember my grandfather used to say the story. So this man says to him, who's Chaim Yankel? It doesn't sound like he knows how do you know his name is Chaim Yankel? He says, who's Chaim Yankel? So the kid says, I don't know. He was the town drunk in my father's house, in my grandfather's town. And people used to say, Chaim Yankel, what he was angry, screaming. The people used to say to him, Chaim Yankel, you don't know. Something, you has to suffer, everything's with a cheshbon. He says, I saw you, so I just blurted it out. I thought it'd be funny. And his name was Chaim Yankel. So now he knew why he had to take the wrong exit, and he knew why he had to travel all that place, and he knew why he had to go. We don't need an Urim V'Tumim. The trick is to find the Urim V'Tumim in our lives. The truth is, today when you go into a gas station with $5 a gallon, a lot of people hear voices because it gets to you afterwards. Somebody once said, a guy said, is it good for gas stations or not, that the gas is up? Says, they claim they don't make any more money, it's just their suppliers. They said, but they're selling a lot more lottery tickets, they claim, but I don't know. I kid you not. I once, I had a relative in the nursing home near on the Sheep Said Bay, and I went to visit once. There's an old man there. He used to stop in, say hello to him. And he had a brother. The brother used to drive to him. So the brother used to say, he's very busy, can't come. I said, what's your brother so busy? He looked like he was retired already. He says, my brother, he drives to New Jersey to get gas, because it's cheaper there. That's what he's busy with. So he drives to New Jersey. I said, is it worth the trip back and forth? How many miles is he driving? He says, no. He says, he lives right here. It's just right over the Verrazano Bridge and over the Gaffels Bridge. And he fills up. He does it every second day, I said, well, how much does the toll cost him on the bridge? So he tells me, his wife does babysitting, so he schleps her away from the babysitting, so this way he gets the carpool lane, so it's cheaper. I said, right. He said, you know how much it's costing this guy to get the cheap gas? But some of us do that. Some of us are in that same trap because we're trying to beat the system. Don't try to beat the system. Whatever is. Don't try to demand justice in every little thing. Satmarov once said, when it comes to shalom bayis, just remember, when you win, you lose. When you lose, you win. You win the fight, you prove that your wife is wrong and you're right. You're going to pay for that. You're going to pay for that. You lose, she's right, you won. Just be smart. Be smart. Say that the Rebbe once came someplace, and the man came out and he told the Rebbe that, could be the Rebbe knew there were issues there at home. And the Rebbe said, the Rebbe could eat. It's all Hamish. It's all made in the house. The challah is Hamish. He said, you could eat it. He said, the cake is Hamish, it's baked in the house. Then he brought some wine to the table, and the Rebbe said, the wine is also Hamish? No, the wine is Kedem. The wine is not Hamish. So how come the wine is not Hamish? Well, he says, to make wine. He says, the Rebbe said, I'll tell you why the wine is not Hamish. Because the challah and the kugel that your wife makes, and the wine you would have to make. That's why the wine, everything else is Hamish. This doesn't have to be Hamish. They say the story that this guy, is driving and the police pull him over. And he says, speeding, that's it. Starts giving him a ticket. And the wife starts screaming at him. You shlamazel! Wherever we go, you get in trouble. You can't do anything right. You can't even drive a car right. I'm finished with you. Why did I marry you? And she gives it to him, and the cop feels so bad. He goes, all right, just go. And they turn away, and his wife goes, works every time. But the emes is, not just with someone giving you a ticket, it really works every time. I'm a shlamazel, I'm going weiter. So, whatever it is, I'm a shlamazel, fine. I have to answer back. Gegangen weiter, life goes. Life goes. Either way, I'm an equal opportunity employer. Whether it's the man to the wife to the man, the Rebbe to the Talmud, I don't mean anybody or anything. Talking to myself. So Haman, he throws these dice, right? Now, so what did Haman want with the dice? Well, let's try to understand. So the pasuk says, "Hipulpur miyayim liyayim chaydesh l'chaydesh." So what's the miyayim liyayim and what's the chaydesh l'chaydesh? He threw the lots from day to day and from month to month. What's the day to day? What's the month to month? So the Yaris Dvash of Yonis and Abish says this is what he did. Okay. First, he said, let's say there's 354 days in the lunar year. So he wrote out 354 little pieces of paper. Knowing Haman, he probably had his kids do it for him. But in any event, so one said Aleph, Beis, Gimel, Daled, or 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way until 354. And then he had a separate box where he wrote out the 12 months. Nisan, Iyar, Sivan, Tammuz, till Adar. So this way he was able to check if the girl was on target. Because let's say he pulled out Adar, number 12, and out of the day box, then he pulled out 100. So the 100th day is in Tammuz. So he knew what, that's why he was so happy when it stimmed, when he pulled out the Yud Gimel Adar came out on that count of days in the year, starting from Nisan. Everything worked out. And that's why it's Purim, says the Yaris Dvash. Because there were two Gerolis, one for the day and one for the week. So, wait a second. So not only is the Yom Tov called Pur, Yom Tov is called Purim. That means that this Indian that he decided to have two lots is so important that we're calling the whole Yom Tov based on this. Now it says that Haman was so happy. He was so happy because Moshe Rabbeinu died this month. What a great month. But he didn't know Moshe Rabbeinu was born this month. He knew they died. He didn't know they were born. He knew why he didn't get both information. The Chassam Sofer says that the word neshama is Rashi Tevis Noach, Sheis, Moshe, and Hevel. They're all the same one. And he says it's to teach us that life is very, very complicated. That here you have Hevel's a tzaddik, and Cain is the Rosh, and Cain kills Hevel. So very nice, Hevel's a tzaddik, but Hevel is dead, and Cain goes on with life. That's for 1,000 years. Then comes the Mabul, and everything changes. The Cain basically is nothing, and who's Noach? Noach is the neshama of Hevel, and even Sheis rebuilds. And then there's Moshe, and all of that became because of Hevel's pain. Where it looks like for Hevel was the end of the line, that paved the way for him to subsequently become Sheis, Noach, and eventually Moshe Rabbeinu. Now it says it's Pashtusa de Moshe b'chol dar v'dar. In every single generation, today of course is Moshe Rabbeinu's yahrzeit tonight, there is a nitzutz of Moshe Rabbeinu in all of the Gedolei Yadar and all of the teachers of Klal Yisrael. That's why very often the Gemara says you said something right. The Gemara says, Moshe Shapir Ka'amrit. Moshe, you said good. My name is not Moshe, my name is Baruch. Everyone's a little Moshe. A little bit of Moshe in everyone. They say about the famous Sir Moses Montefiore, whose name was also Moshe, by the way. So he went around, he traveled the world, and he was the British Secretary of Finance in those years, when there were real kings and emperors and stuff. So most of the people were very amiable to him. He had a tremendous, he was a very, very good person, and he rebuilt the whole, finance and economy of England and so on. But there was one particular paritz or squire that was a vicious anti-Semite. And when Sir Moses came one day for a meeting, so he called in his big, nice pet bull, his dog, and he's playing with the dog, and he kept referring to the dog as Mashka. Now, Mashka was a nickname for Moshe, and the peasants and even the squires used to call every single Yid Mashka. That was like a nickname. So he wanted to chap Montefiore, so he said, "This is my dog, Moshe, Mashka. Hey, Mashka, come here, Mashka." And all the other, they were shocked in front of he wasn't used to this kind of treatment. And Montefiore is not fazed by it. So he's not saying anything. So he tells him, "New British Minister of Finance, what do you say to my dog Mashka?" He says, "I really feel bad for your dog." He said, "Why?" He said, "Well, now that he's a Jewish dog, I know he'll never be able to become a squire like you because they don't accept Jews. So, we'll just have to deal with it." Right? Got the message out there. Now, Moshe Rabbeinu, who buried Moshe Rabbeinu? Hashem. Which is why Zayin Adar is traditionally a day set aside where Chevra Kadishas do two things. They have a Suda at night, Zayin Adar, and the next day they generally fast. They fast in case they didn't handle a dead body with the proper honor and proper covet. But only Jews can do that, right? You volunteer for something, and then you have to fast. For not only aren't you getting thing, and Yidden still do it. They still do it. And Chevra Kadishas are meeting as we talk all over. Night of Zayin Adar, tonight's the night. And they have tremendous stories, which I don't want to get into now. I don't want to sound too morbid. I will tell you that I have a Mechutin whose great-grandmother, or actually grandmother, was in charge of the Chevra Kadisha in an organization for many, many years, even in Europe. She came to America, she continued, and she did it during the war with great Mesiras Nefesh. And she lived till the ripe old age of, I think, 102. And she was sharp till the second, before she died. And she didn't die in a hospital, she died at home. And she went out, she said, okay, I have to change, she said. And she put on her own tachrichim, her own shrouds. And she gave instructions to the minion that's standing around, and you say this, and you say that. And she said, do me a favor, take out the cake for people when they come afterwards. They should have a real grandmother. And she said, okay, we're ready, we're set, okay. She said Shema Yisrael, and she died. That's how she did it. And I will tell you a story of a friend of mine that recently, Rahman al-Islam, lost a little girl. She wasn't well when she was born, but she had a very, very special smile. Everyone loved her. And she passed away in the hospital. And he was told, if there's a minion, it's a big thing. And she's sitting there. And he told me this amazing story that the doctors told him, okay, now. And he said, I need a minion. You know what? I need 10 Jews. And one of the people there, and he was an aide, like a nurse or a nurse's aide, like not an African-American, fine individual. He said, I'm going to help you. And he ran in this major hospital from floor to floor looking for Yidden. So this other guy told me, he's a Chassidish guy, and he comes around to hospitals at night, and he says he walks in there 2 o'clock in the morning, and he sees this guy running toward him. He says, oh no. And the guy says to him, this guy has a long beard, but he says, you're Jewish? Yeah. He says, well, get up there, I need a minion, come on, let's go. And they took him to the room. And believe it or not, he ran from room to room, and he put together a minion. They said, it shows that in Hashemayim, the turning wheels, things don't just happen. Many people had a minhag Zayin Adar at night to be maspid all of the tzaddikim of the entire year. To say a hesped on all the tzaddikim that passed away, and to say a hesped on every tragedy that passed away. Because what happens is, when someone is a Shaimer Torah mitzvahs, and he goes up there, Moshe Rabbeinu greets him. So Zayin Adar is like a time that we reflect in a positive sense on the tragedies throughout the year, and we say, you know what? It's not easy to have a neshama up there, but he's in good hands. Good hands. Moshe Rabbeinu was there. He's taking care of him. It says before Moshe Rabbeinu was nifter, so it's time for Moshe Rabbeinu pleaded and begged to stay. I want to stay down here. No, can't. Time is up. Hashem said to the Malach Gabriel, go get him. And the Malach Gabriel said, me? The man who split the Yamsuf? My shtek is neshama? Hashem, please. He said to the Malach Michal, you go get his neshama. What? He's like, it's like a Rebbe-Talmud relationship. I can't do it. So Kosh Baruch Hu turned to the Samach Mem, to the Malach HaMavos. Okay, you go. So the Lashon of the Medrash, not that we know what we're talking about, I'm just quoting the Lashon. Lavash Kasai, put on his true anger, Chagar Charba, his sword. This Atef, he wrapped himself Be'achzarius, and he came down to get Moshe. And Kiva Shara, Kaisav Shema Mefarish, Moshe was riding the Shema Mefarish, and there was a shine from his face, and it says about the Samach Mem, Achzar Ra'ada V'chil Kayaled, that he began to shudder in Pachad, like a woman during childbirth. Notice it says like a woman during childbirth. As if to say, whereas the Malach HaMavos frightens us with death, and here we couldn't, because Moshe Rabbeinu represents life. Life, this world, life, that world. You're going from one world to the next. That famous mashal in the Sefer Gesher HaChayim, that there are two identical twins that are slowly growing up in their mother's womb. And they're having a time of their life. Mamish, swimming in pools, lights. This Malach comes and teaches them. He's a great Rebbe, and it's beautiful. And after a while, they're there for quite a few months. It's getting a little tight over there. And all of a sudden, one day, boom, screams, terrifying things, walls are caving in, and one of the brothers, help, I don't know where I'm going, and he's being yanked and pulled out, and the other brother goes, oh no, my brother died, he's gone. He's born. So the Gesher Chaim says that we view death that way. Death is really birth. It's really going from one world to another world. The Sifri says that the Malach HaMavos was so frightened that he says, I can't. He left. So Kosh Baruch Hu sent him again He went back, the Malach HaMavis said, go get Moshe Rabbeinu's neshama. So he went back down, a Katzaval of Moshe. Moshe got angry. Natal Makol, he took the stick, Shechakik by Shem HaMefayrish, and he chased the Malach HaMavis with it. How's that? And not only did Moshe Rabbeinu chase the Malach HaMavis with the stick, but the Medrash says that Natal Karen mi bein einav, he took the horn from his eyes. Does the Malach HaMavis have a horn? Not anymore. Moshe Rabbeinu took it. And the Iver es einav, and blinded him. Blinded the Malach HaMavis. It says the Malach HaMavis is Moli Anayim, is full of eyes. What does that mean? Where does the Malach HaMavis, where does the Satan, who are Malach HaMavis, where does he get us? Right? We live in a world of pachad. Oh no, the world's coming to an end. Oh no, that's it, this is over, that's over, my relationship is over, my parnas is over, the door is fired, it's over, I'll never get another job, it's gone, Moli Anayim. Full of eyes of horror, eyes of depression. Moshe Rabbeinu blinded those eyes. No, we're not looking at it that way. It's not a doomed future. Alright, so the Malach HaMavis says, do me a favor, this job is not for me. So the Rebbe Shem comes to Moshe Rabbeinu, and Moshe Rabbeinu says, please, let me stay in this world. Let me stay as an oif hapareach bi'aver. I'll be a bird. B'dalad ruchas alam. I'll fly around the four corners of the world. I'll gather mezainis, and I'll come back to my nest. Because Baruch Hu said, Rav, please don't do this to me. Don't ask anymore. You know what kind of schar is waiting for you up there in Olam Haba. Now what does Moshe Rabbeinu want? Why would Moshe Rabbeinu want to stay here as a bird? The answer is, so we discussed from Rav Shach last time, that a bird has its chelik and kvod shemayim. If I'm up there getting schar, I don't have any chelik and kvod shemayim. But there are other, and one of my fathers used to share this with me. So why was Moshe Rabbeinu so determined to go into Eretz Yisrael and build the Beis HaMikdash? Because he knew if he builds the Beis HaMikdash, there will not be a churban. He knew if he builds the Beis HaMikdash, there will be no crusades, no Spanish Inquisitions, no Holocaust. He knew if he builds the Beis HaMikdash, no Tisha B'Av, there will be no Yad Vashem. So let me stay down here. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, but there's a plan for the world. But I promise you, Moshe Rabbeinu, you'll be back. But you'll be back in a different way. Parshas Truma ends with the words, V'chol yizdos hachatzer nechayshes. Nechayshes says the Chasam Sofer, quotes the Alkut Ravenu, is Rashi Tevis, Noyach, Shes. Hachatzer is the courtyard. That's the world that was recreated after the Mabul through Shes and Noyach. The Heichel that's made by Aaron HaKayim. And the Kodesh HaKadoshim is through Moshe. The Kodesh HaKadoshim is the embassy of Shemayim. In other words, the world as we understand it, as we see it, was recreated, saved by Noach. The world that we believe that this world isn't it, that we're just down here, we're on stage, and as soon as it's over, we get our reward in Shemayim, and there is something else after this, that's Moshe. And Moshe Rabbeinu had to leave the world, even though it would be a much more painful world, because it's a world without an Urim V'Tumim, to be able to come back and do it this way. That in our hearts. So when David Ben-Gurion said, why draft yeshiva boys? Because in 50 years from now, there won't be such a thing as a yeshiva bach. Don't you understand that? Now, people have all kinds of opinions about Ben-Gurion. But his greatest enemy never accused him of being a fool. Al pi derech hateva, he was right. Think about the Holocaust, the questions. There were no yeshivas in Eretz Yisrael then. There was one Chevron yeshiva that was massacred. And the socialist winds and the communist winds that were blowing in Europe, and now the World War II and all of the questions, and forget it, it's a new world, we have a country, it's different. It doesn't make any sense. That less than 100 years later you have a Mir Yeshiva in Yerushalayim with thousands and thousands and thousands of buses, line for miles and miles for Bein Hasdarim. And Moshe Rabbeinu keeps rebuilding things in a way that we can't understand it. Purim is a Targum Lashon. It's really Aramaic. In Lashon Kodesh, the word is Goyrel. The Chasam Sofer says, the Yemuna Sitecha explains, why when you're Mavas Sedra, you're supposed to be Mavas Sedra, Shnayim Nikra V'Yecha Targum? Because twice the Pasuk is the Pasuk. The Targum is your life. If something becomes bottle, Chad Betray. Midaraisa, you have one piece of treif meat, 2 pieces of kosher meat, becomes bottle. Depends if it's parish, but under certain circumstances. When you're being Mavas Sedra, you're saying the pasuk twice. You're taking your life, which is targum that you don't understand, and you're saying, Rabbanu Shalom, I know you have a cheshbon. You know what's going on over here. Marachai min HaTorah minayin, it says Mar Derar. The targum says Mar Dechai. Everything comes back to the targum. Now, the Megillah is called a letter. Why is the Megillah called a letter? And it's halachis because it's called a letter. We open up the Megillah when we read it because it's a letter. It's missing letters, still kosher. Technically, under certain circumstances, it can be missing up until half, still kosher. It's a letter. A letter has unclear letters. And it's still kosher. Why is it called a letter? So a couple of weeks ago I shared with you the famous story that Baal Shem Tov once called somebody in. He said, you go into this and this town? He said, yeah. He says, take this letter and deliver it to so-and-so. Takes the letter, he forgot to deliver it. 20 years down the line, forgot to deliver it. This rich guy lost every last penny that he had. And now Nebuch, he has to go to the Rosh Hakol and ask him for money. He's Sabrach and he sells his house. He has to sell his old clothes. He's selling his old clothes and boop, the letter finds it and goes, oh my God, 20 years ago the Rebbe said I should deliver it. Well, better later than ever. And he picks it up and he's delivering the letter. He's coming to the Rosh Hakol. He says, man, and he says, well, I have a letter. It's 20 years too late. And he's dressed now in rags and he opens it up. And as he starts reading the letter, somebody comes running into the Rosh Hakol and says, Mazel Tov, your wife just gave birth to a boy. Oh, Mazel Tov. All right, let me just read this letter. It starts like this. Mazel Tov on the birth of your boy. What? It says, this guy lost all of his money, please help him. So he understood this is all hashgacha, that he should lose the letter and he should find it. A letter is open for interpretation. A letter means it's current. It's happening now. A sefer, Chronicles, is in your Svarim Shank. It's in the archives. When you get a letter, the Megillah every year, you're getting a letter. Your life is in the Megillah. It could be revealed through the Kayach of Purim. But you have to be willing to accept it for what it is. Now, there's a Rizal says that Achashverosh never touched Esther physically. She was mashbiah through her powers of Kabbalah, a shida, a shed, some type of call it a ghost out of lack of better definition, and the ghost went in. But now Mordechai said to Esther, you got to go in and plead on behalf of Klal Yisrael. Now, this was very problematic for Esther. Besides the fact that Achashverosh was a madman, he could have killed her, but technically speaking, Mordechai was married to Esther. Mordechai says she was Tevelas, Mecheka Shel Achashverosh, she went back to Mordechai. She was technically permissible to him, being that Mordechai was not a kohen. When Achashverosh called her, she was an Einish. She had no choice. If, however, she goes in now willfully to Achashverosh, although she is going to plead on behalf of Klal Yisrael, but she is technically no longer an Einish, and as a result, she would become usher to Mordechai forever. And that's what she meant, that kashavadnu avadnu. That's what Esther was giving up here. So the Rav Shetzirav says that she said to Mordechai, let me send in the shed. Let me send in this instant ghost. You know, I cloned, whatever. I mean, in a Kabbalah way, and, it'll do the job. Mordechai said, it's not going to work. I'm sorry. And with tears in his eyes, he said, if Revach v'hatzal la'yamid la'yehudim me'makam acher, if you're going to use Kabbalah and tricks, we're going to be lost. If you want a Yeshua for Klal Yisrael, you have to deal with the reality. And reality is sometimes painful. And reality is mysterious. You got to do it. The Megillah teaches us what the Baal Shem Tov said, Da malamala mimcha. Da, no malamala mimcha, comes from you. Famous story in the Reishis Chacham, we've mentioned it several times. This guy is like dreaming of marrying the princess. He's a shlepper sheba shlepper. And he sees the princess, he goes, will you marry me? The princess says, yeah, sure, meet me in the cemetery tonight. Everyone's laughing. He thinks she's serious. He dresses himself up in his best suit. He's there in the cemetery waiting. And then he realizes that she was joking. She was like, but at one point he was overwhelmed with such a hava. The Reishis Chacham brings a story. He said, what am I wasting this ahava on people that are slapping me in the face? I can use this ahava to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Everyone has their nisyonis. One guy's in a sign of anger. One guy's in a sign of taiva. One guy's in a sign of depression. Everyone here, including myself, being human means nisyonis. Somebody came to the Chazanish and said, give me a bracha, I shouldn't have a Yetzirah anymore. He said, you want to die? Life means nisyonis. Don't try to go to New Jersey to save gas. I mean, unless you happen to be driving to New Jersey. Let's not try to be an Oibrachach. If only I had an Urim V'Tumim, if only I had Moshe Rabbeinu. You have Moshe Rabbeinu in a different form. You have Moshe Rabbeinu in the sense you say, Rabbeinu Shalom, I want to be able to take my emotions and to do it and use it for your sake. This is who I am. I can't change it. Teach me how to take the love within me and love you. Teach me how to take the fear within me and fear you. Teach me how to do it. And that, the goy role is min hashemayim, right? Goes min hashemayim. So Haman, he's just the opposite. Haman wants to teach this world is by chance, it's potluck, there is no hashgacha. That's Amalek. Amalek is mikra, vayikar. It's kol asher karo. It all happens. It's said many times. The word vayikra can be spelled in 3 ways. Vayikra with an aleph means a calling. Vayikra with a hey means it happened. Vayikra with an ayin means to rip. Things happen in our life. You go, my God, how did this happen to me? Again and again. Wait a second. No. It doesn't just happen. It's not Vayikra with a hey. It's Vayikra with an aleph. Hashem, you did this to me for whatever reason. I don't have to understand it. You did it to me. If you're willing to acknowledge that, Vayikra with an ayin, you can rip the gzeira. You can break the gzeira. Zakr Tzaddik. Where do we find the goyrel in the Torah? Yeshua used the goyrel to give out Eretz Yisrael. And there was a man, his name was Achain, and when they were told not to help yourself to any of the booty, he did. So Yeshua came and said, you're the one that did it. He says, who said? No, so Yeshua asked God, who did it? God said, I speak Lashon Hara, make a goyrel. So they made a goyrel who fell on Shevet Yehuda. They made another goyrel who fell on Achain. Achain says, you're going to punish me for a goyrel? You will put in a goyrel between you and a Lazar. It also would have come at one of you two. So Yeshua said, I beg of you, Achain, please, don't question the goyrel. Because then everyone's going to question, if you don't believe the goyrel's in the Shemayim, everyone's going to question their chelik in Eretz Yisrael. So Achain said, okay, I admit I stole. And Chazal say Achain was zeicha to a place in Gan Eden that nobody in the world was zeicha to in that context. Because he had the courage to admit it. So Rav Tzaddik says like this, the Kadosh Baruch Hu could have said it was Achain, but that would have brandished Achain a chet. Instead, Kadosh Baruch Hu hid it in the form of the goyrel. And it was up to Achain to admit this goyrel is hashgacha. And therefore he had the tikkun of a lifetime that he could have never had. And that's the reason on Yom Kippur, says Reb Tzaddik, it also goes with a goyrel, the Sarah Lazazel. But why does it have to go with a goyrel? This is Hashem, this is Lazazel. You go down the mountain, you get a carbon. Why do I got to go through a goyrel? The goyrel, says Reb Tzaddik, means because the Sarah was a kapara on every single Aveira. How can I have a kapara on every single Aveira? I did so many terrible things. Because Hashem says, in the tsaris of your life, in the difficulties of your life, if you say, this is hashgacha, this came in Hashemayim, Hashem says, stop, I'm mochli. And that's why the kapara had to be through a goyrel. So comes Haman, and Haman doesn't call it a goyrel. He calls it a pur. He says, Purim, days, months, it's all chance. It's all potluck. And that's Amalek. Who did Amalek attack? He attacked those that the Ananiya Kavod threw out. Couldn't penetrate the Ananiya Kavod. Says Reb Tzaddik, he attacked those that fell into taiva with their eyes. Those that fell into taiva with their guf. Eating, hirurim ra'im. These are the people that Onan couldn't take them in. And Haman went to them and said, your life is over, you're finished. God doesn't care for you. There's nothing you can do to correct it. And Mechias Amalek means a belief. No, it doesn't make a difference who I am or what I did and how low I am. There is a way back. If I believe in Hashgacha, the path to tshuva is open. All right. Let's wrap things up. It's Zayin Adar. So what do I do? What do I do now about Zayin Adar? Some suggestions. It's brought down in the Luach. Birchas Hazanas HaKoil, in your bench. The first bracha is Moshe Rabbeinu's bracha. So if you want to go out and have a falafel tonight, L'Shem Shemayim, and bench, eat two pizzas, just make sure you have a shear for the bench. Or whenever you're benching tomorrow morning, think about this. The first bracha is Moshe Rabbeinu's bracha. It's his day. Kapitel Tzadik to Kuf Aleph is with Moshe Rabbeinu. When you say the Shira tomorrow, you say V'Moshe Avdoi. You say Yishtabach, the Tesvav Shvachim of Yishtabach were made by Moshe Rabbeinu. It says a certain tefillah for tzaddikim that aren't well. It's a bracha that comes along. Now here's the catch. Some Sefer talks about this. Tzaddik is fasemis in different ways, but they basically say the same word. Haman said, Moshe died. He pleaded, he begged God, and God said, no, you're dead. It's over. And Haman is so happy. You see, you talk to God, he doesn't answer you. But Lo Yada, he did not know that in this mess Moshe is noilet Moshe. He did not know when I say, Rabbi Shalom, help me, and I'm not being helped. And it's okay, Rabbi Shalom, I know my tefillahs are important to you. I know you're gathering them. I know you have my tears in your cup. I know you're listening, even though I don't see why. But Rabbi Shalom says, I'm Michael, you, I know you're Aveiros. You're going to be mine forever. Haman didn't know that in this Zayin Adar mess Moshe is noilad Moshe. Wrap it up. Rabbi Heschel of Zedachayv. There was, many Chassidim have a minhag, they have a Purim Rav. There's a Rav, he's the Purim Rav, and he's the great thing. Some people are Purim Rav all year. Depends who they are. Rebbe once said, there's a guy, he says, certain people, they dress up like Rebbes, they're Rebbes. He says there's a problem, he said, because it says that if you imitate someone that you're not, God punishes you, that you become that. He said, but what if the that is also an imitation? He said, that's the problem. Alright, so you have a Purim Rav, and there was this guy, they made him a Purim Rav, and they stretched out his white beard, they crozzled his payas, they put on a shtreimel, they put on a gold beksh, like they do to some people, and they got him certain glasses, and he's holy, and they gave him a couple of shots of Polish's excellence again. He's flying high, and he's giving brachas, he's gewaldig, and by the time Purim comes, he's giving he's standing there, the whole Klal Yisrael is on his shoulders, his kavanas, everyone's lined up for brachas, he's giving out cake, he's giving out bracha, and Fischel the Shaiva says to him, Purim Rav, he does a bunch of things that are terrible, gzeira on candles, they put a tax on candles, and no Jews need candles for Shabbos, off with the tax, no more tax, gewaldig. Alright, and finally he says to him, the Russian government, they're drafting little Jewish children, 6, 9 years old, sending them off to different faraway places for 50, 60 years. Be mevatel that gzeira. And he goes, you're nudging me too much. That not. He's roaring drunk, and Heschel's pleading with him, no! And he collapses, he falls. Then he wakes up the next morning, everyone's so angry at him. What did I do? He doesn't know what happened to him. I said no, and he runs to the Rebbe. No, I'm mevatel gzeira, I'm mevatel all this. The Rebbe says, nah, that was the moment we weren't zeicha. Purim is a time you could be zeicha. Purim is a time of impossibility. Nothing makes sense. The way I'm dressed doesn't make sense. My glasses don't make sense. My shoes don't make sense. You know what? It doesn't make sense. And even though it doesn't make sense, I know this is the way it's supposed to be. When you do that, you can be zeicha to anything. And we have to be careful not to miss the opportunity.